you can't always just put everything in front of the coach's door and say, hey, it's the coach.
It's just astonishing where Springbok rugby is right now. Number one with a bullet. Now, the best team in the world. And, I said this a couple of weeks ago, by probably a couple of scores. Yet the season didn't actually start like that for you, did it?
You can see there's a difference in the way we're playing, the way we're thinking. So I would say somewhere along the line, Tony gave some fantastic advice to Rossi.
DSPN is brought to you by Novus Glass, proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. The Special Olympics New Zealand National Summer Games is in Christchurch, Ōtautahi, this December. Across New Zealand, Aotearoa athletes, clubs, volunteers and families are getting ready, training, supporting each other and celebrating as the flame of hope travels down the country. Text Novus to 3598 to support our athletes. That's Novus, Novus, to 3598 to support our incredible athletes at the Special Olympics in Christchurch, Ōtautahi this December. Notice it, Novus it.
Welcome to the DSPN.
Team New Zealand's in trouble.
Goal! He's done it again, Ricky Herbert.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
DSPN, Martin Devlin, Lachlan War. Well, it is always a real pleasure to have this man on the program. Naas Botha played for the Springboks for 12 years. He toured here in 1981, and that's when I, as a young man who was torn between the streets and the rugby field, trying to do both at the same time, which didn't really work. But we got to see this man play, and he was a fantastic player. A hell of a series that was, which still ends in controversy, I'm sure, for everyone in South Africa. And we'll take that Alan Hewson penalty every day of the week, Naas. All these years later, if I remind you of that, I bet it still hurts. Welcome back to the show, my friend.
No, thank you, Martin. No, it's it's one of those days. I think it's just quickly on the whole tour. It was when I really got into rugby. There were two things that I thought as a youngster I would love to do. I would like to play against the British and Irish Lions, and I was extremely fortunate to do that. And then the second was to tour New Zealand as a Springbok, and I was very fortunate to do that. A very difficult circumstances, situation, not that great for New Zealand, but in those days I was a believer, and I'm still a believer. Politics should stay out of sport, but I know it's not always possible. But what a fantastic country to tour. And I've always said, I believe there's two countries you would love to tour as a rugby player. One is New Zealand, and I think the other one is South Africa.
And we get to do that next year, and that is just going to be an incredible tour. And we're going to talk about that, obviously, in this conversation as well. Just one question. I've always wanted to know, how were you received? I know that there was a lot of anger on the streets and everything, but as players, in the times that you actually got to actually get out, and did you actually meet any just normal New Zealanders, some rugby fans? Did you get to spend any time at all on that tour doing any of that?
Thinking back, yes, we did. We did spend quite a bit of time. We had a Maori barbecue, if you can call it that way, the way they prepare their food. That was extremely interesting. Yeah. Oh, is that what you call it? Okay.
Yeah.
But it was extremely interesting to watch that. And then in general, I thought we were okay. The guys sort of realized that, we had to stick together. We're a little bit on our own. Before internationals, we knew that the team that's playing with a couple of reserves will stay, in certain places where the other guys will stay in different places. But we can, I've listened a couple of times to guys that's been on the tour, and then I thought, but, it wasn't that difficult. We can get I think, extremely emotional about the whole thing and how difficult it was. It wasn't that difficult. It was a great tour to be on. The only thing is, and it's easy to talk now because it's so many years later, the only thing that still, even till today, stay with me is that what I didn't appreciate about the tour is that New Zealand families, for each other, and I thought that's not the way sport should be. Sport should be there for enjoyment. Sport should be there for everybody, and that was the only thing that I will always keep in my mind about that tour, is that I didn't appreciate the New Zealanders actually fighting against New Zealanders.
It's such a long time ago now, isn't it? But, at some stage we will have a big conversation about this, because there's so many questions I want to ask. But we're going to focus on the here and now, which is this season. You being one of the legendary Springbok first fives, you've got 3 now, which Russie can pick from any of those 3. We'll talk about that. But I just want to start right at the start, which is, here we are sitting at the end of this year, and it's just astonishing where Springbok rugby is right now. Number 1 with a bullet. Nas, the best team in the world. And, I said this a couple of weeks ago, by probably a couple of scores. Yet the season didn't actually start like that for you, did it?
No, it didn't really start all that well. I thought the game against the Barbarians, I know it was the first game, I didn't think we played all that well. And then against the young Italian side, I also thought that we didn't play all that well. And then they sort of found their, let's say, rhythm. And I was a little bit surprised, but I think the British and Irish Lions tour to Australia helped them with their preparation. So the loss against Australia was a little bit of a surprise, but not really a major surprise, because we know at the moment, if you get the 15 best players of Australia on the park, all fit and healthy, they actually quite a team to look out for. And then, losing against New Zealand, if there's one team that, I don't mind losing against, is New Zealand, but you don't like it. But in that game, you guys really played well, as we also then proved the second half how well we can play. Because I've never seen a bad New Zealand side, never in my life. They were always, I want to say, a little bit the favourite, and I think this year, the World Cups is different. You get 1 or 2 bad calls and it changes. You go 2007 World Cup for New Zealand, a forward pass by a metre, everybody missed it. Yeah. Except everybody that watched it. The only guy that actually missed it was the ref. But, right. I thought karma is actually not a bad one, because after what happened with Clive Norling and us in 81, I didn't worry too much about 2007. But you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The World Cup is, some games is you get a little bit of luck, and you need a little bit of luck to win World Cups. We all know that. But the way we played that second half against you guys this year was unbelievable. But then, I worked for SuperSport for 30 years, analysing every single international. And I've been there when it was 57 against the Boks and 57 against the Boks. So we've been through that. But I must say, the way we took New Zealand apart, I must be honest, I really, really enjoyed it, because you don't see it too often.
So after Australia at Ellis Park, where they put 36 points on, you bounced back in Cape Town, and everyone thought that there would be a bounce back, and Russie changed that team around. Then you came to Eden Park, and I still maintain that I think the All Blacks played well that night and deserved to win. At 14 men down in the last 10 minutes with 78% possession, you just about smashed our door down and got a draw. And as you say, the next week, it all elevated, and from Wellington, Nas, this team has gone up another gear. Then beating Argentina twice, going overseas to Europe and winning every single game. And not just winning, it's the emphatic nature of winning. What has happened in your mind to that Springbok side that has just kicked up another gear?
I still believe, and you mentioned it, and it's nice to look at it that way. I think if we started off better against the Barbarians, we would have been earlier at a different level. Because we started off a little bit slow, it was going to catch on somewhere along the line. But I think the guys, after the second half, in Wellington. I think that's when the guys realized this is really a talented squad. We sort of suddenly changed a little bit of an attitude. Keeping the ball in hand proved, essential at the end. And then the belief. And because you've been in sport for how many years, a sportsman, it's extremely difficult when you play against somebody that's got a lot of confidence. A sportsman. Now, I always say, whatever you say, sportsmen play themselves in rhythm and they play themselves in confidence. And I think after what happened in Wellington, because the Pumas wasn't a walk in the park, let's be honest. They were a difficult side to beat. And we did that. And then after that, I looked at Europe and I thought, Scotland, Wales, Ireland. There's, when Johnny Sexton left Ireland, I think they're missing as extremely special player there. So I wasn't convinced that we were going to see, apart from England, because I thought England was showing glimpses of, getting back to maybe a little bit of a powerhouse, where Scotland, Wales, and Ireland didn't give me that confidence. I thought England, and then the other game, of course, France. Was always going to be a difficult game, but I still believe that after beating them in the World Cup, mentally played a little bit of a part there.
Look, if you'd managed to organise a test against England right at the moment, that would be one hell of a game, wouldn't it? Because they put the All Blacks to the sword as well, and this the way that they have come on in the last 12 months. Now, it's this whole squad that Rassie has got now, and the ability to interchange players, pick different 15s, pick a different backline like he did in Wellington. I don't know in all the years I've been watching rugby where I've seen any team have that player base. Where has this come from? Has this surprised you, or did you know that it was always there, that you had maybe 30, maybe 40 players that were of that level right now?
The last number of years, including the 2 World Cups, because before 2019, Rassie took over, okay? And then we, as you know, we had the policy of not selecting foreign players or players that actually play outside South Africa.
Yeah.
And then he came in and he said, listen, we have to change that. And I'm a great believer, and I know you guys, are at the same level, that you don't really play or select players that's playing in foreign countries, okay? But then I realized, after losing twice, 57-something, you can't always blame coaches, you can't always blame the players. Sometimes you have the talent, sometimes you don't have the talent. But when I saw us selecting whoever is available, because any guy that goes and plays somewhere else experience it differently. I was fortunate. I played a little bit in Ireland. I played in America. I played in Italy against John Kerwin, and you can name them, Wayne Smith. And you find different cultures playing different, and it plays a nice mindset, and it puts you at a different level as just playing in your own country. That's the way I feel about it. And I'm a strong believer that whatever, the policies are, each country can decide for himself. But I still believe what we would love to see as supporters, and Martin, you and I are actually only supporters at the moment, okay? Yep. We would love to see the 15 best players against the 15 best players of each country playing whenever they play. And that's the end of it, So if you guys are ever going to change the policy, I've got no idea. But I think for the future of the game, because what do you want? You want your best players to be available. Now, let's say, Martin, you get a great opportunity to just go and experience rugby in France. I can't really see the difference of, I know you need to look after your home product. I know that. Okay. Same in South Africa. We have to look after the NPC people need to look after. New Zealand need to look after that, because that's where you grow your younger players coming through for what? To play for the All Blacks one day. But
Right.
at the end, if you've got 3 or 4 guys playing in France and England and Japan and whatever, and they can strengthen the All Black side, then I don't see a problem with that, because if we want to take rugby to the next level and make it a global game, then we must allow the players to play globally. You can't say to me, Nas, I can only select you if you play in South Africa. You can't do that. And I know a lot of people might differ with me. They might say, yeah, but you need to show loyalty. It's a professional game. That's the thing. In the old days, absolutely. But not in the new game. The new game it's free for all. And wherever you want to play and you get an opportunity. And that's also, Martin, that's where you get different experiences, different conditions. And suddenly, when you play in whatever condition, you might be a little bit more comfortable than just playing in the same conditions against the same players every week and week out.
Look, a lot of our guys who go on what we call sabbaticals say that it's a mind freshener, if anything else. I think this rule will be relaxed. We'll have Richie Mwanga back next year. They're going to rewrite the rules, Nas, around him. And also, I think for New Zealand, we at some stage, the New Zealand rugby's got to get its head around. I don't believe it involves 15 or 30 players leaving New Zealand. I'm not so sure there's that many places available overseas. It might involve 4 or 5 or 6 players to start with. And at some stage, that decision is going to have to be made, because the further you guys get in front, we're going to be looking for answers everywhere we can find them. I want to talk about the first fives now, because obviously that was your position and you played it so well. And I always think it's such a shame you only played 28 tests and we never really got to see as much of you as we wanted to see. But you've got 3 first fives now that are all different players. Sasha and Mani and Andre, of course, all can play in that team, all can do different things. It is the biggest luxury in world rugby at the moment to have those 3 guys who I'm sure could start just about for every other team if they wanted to. So let's break them all down to start with. I'd like your thoughts on each player, their strengths, and also, does Russie have a favourite? Is there a guy that you think is the number 1, number 10 out of those 3? Let's start there.
I don't think Russie's got a favourite. I think what happened is Sasha, the way he's playing at the moment and been playing, he sort of made himself the number 1 choice. That's as simple as that. And the thing that puts him apart from the other 2 is he's extremely quick. And that's what you need, because the thing is, you give him half a gap and he's gone. Andre is a different kind of player. He's more the direct guy, if I can put it that way. If you want to play, I want to say direct rugby, then Andre is your guy. If there's an extremely, and then you go to the tight fives. If you know that the opposition is going to really keep you at bay, and it's going to be a little bit like the old England, play for penalties and kick penalties the whole day, then Andre will be the guy. Why? Because he's proved that you give him a penalty wherever, any World Cup final, Dan Carter, Johnny Wilkinson, you can name them, he just never misses. Okay, Mani is slightly a different kind of guy. I think at the moment it works extremely well. If you can sum it up, I say after 40, 50 minutes, see if the game is getting tighter or looser. If it's tight, you can keep Sasha on for 80 minutes. I still believe, I'm one of the old believers, that if you select me to play, then I should be able to play first 80 minutes. I think Mani is off the bench. He's an extremely good guy. Andre also, he can play first 5, he can play second 5, as you guys call it. We call it inside center, but he can play both. Mani can, he can also get his backline going. Especially what I've think the difference we've seen this year is if we do the right selection in the midfield. And there's two kinds of midfields we have. We have a very direct midfield, and then we've got the ball players, okay? And that's where Rassie is playing an extremely important part by looking at the opposition and saying, okay, we need this midfield or we need that midfield. And that's why, there's Sasha is the guy that can bring both the direct midfield or the running midfield. He can bring them into the game. I just love the way he takes on the opposition. That's one thing. He's definitely not hanging back in the pocket. I think I saw on the weekend he's 8 or 10 tries already for a fly-off. That's quite a bit. And it's good tries. It's not easy tries. It's really some fantastic tries. So he's that kind of guy. Now I'm going to give you a nice little story.
Go on.
When I was with the Cowboys in '83, I had a kicking coach there. Okay. And he explained to me, he said, you know what? Kickers sometimes confuse themselves. And I said, okay, explain to me. He said, the brain it's an amazing thing. You've got an intellectual side and you've got a natural side and. Okay. And he said, the thing is, what kickers should do is put the ball down, go back and kick. And see, in American football, it's nice and easy because you've got about 1.2 seconds to kick. Okay.
That's right.
Not 60 seconds. So there's no time to think. Okay. And I said, okay, but explain it to me in detail. He said, okay, what happens is you know how to kick. I said, okay. He says, what do you do? And I did it actually once in a rugby game. And it was the worst kicking display that you could imagine. I was throwing grass in the air, checking the wind this way, that way in Durban, because in Durban at one stage it was extremely difficult to kick because of the wind coming in, and then it just, create havoc. And I tried that and I was absolutely useless. Okay. And then I realized what the guy actually meant. He said, you've got your intellectual side, you've got your natural side. Put the ball down, walk back, kick. Okay. And at one stage, the guy said, yeah, but I'm kicking too quickly. But the thing is, if you know how to kick, take Damian McKenzie. He knows how to kick. He doesn't need to think about the kick. He just puts the ball down, go back, kick. And 99% you will kick it over. But when you start thinking about, it's like golf. When you start thinking about how I'm going to strike the ball, is the wind coming from where, whatever, you've been playing for 40 minutes. You know how the wind's blowing. So put the ball down. You know it's coming from right to left. Aim a little bit more right and keep it simple. And that's when I realized what the guy meant. Keep the intellectual side out of the natural side, because that's only confusing the brain and your natural talent. And I promise you, it is 100% correct.
How difficult is it to kick a American football compared to a rugby ball? Just by the by, just so now that you've mentioned it. Did you find it difficult?
It's a little different. No, it's not difficult. It's different because you've got 7 yards away a guy that's 6'9", he jumps up in the air. So you've got to get the ball up. That's why I think the longest kick now in American football is 68 yards.
Yeah.
Okay.
A guy got a guy got 70 in pre-season, which is just incredible that he got. Yeah, but it's I think in the regular season it's 68. You're right. Yeah.
68. Yeah. Okay. Now that's about 52 meters.
Something like that. Yeah.
Now if you take it, you've seen Frans Steyn kicking a ball nearly 70 meters.
True.
Why? Because he's got time. The triac of the ball traveling is totally different. You can keep it low, you can keep it long, and you can't do that in American football. So it is slightly different, but it's not impossible, put it that way.
Tony Brown, what has he brought? And just the fact that Rassie was prepared to get him in as well, was that a surprise to you? That, because one thing in New Zealand that we've got to get our heads around is, I agree with you, players playing overseas, but also any intellectual input. It doesn't matter to me where you're born or where you come from. If you can add to our team, well, then why can't you be added to it? But we like to keep things very insular in New Zealand, as you know, at the moment. That may change. But to get Tony Brown in, and you can see they have a great relationship because they're obviously quite different people, but he sits right next to him. They talk a lot during the game. And I'm sure that Russie would have no one near him that close unless he really trusted that man and liked that man. So a couple of aspects to this. Why did he get him in, and what has he brought that you can see to the Springboks? What has he added?
It's difficult to give a answer that might make sense because you don't know how they coach, because you're not in the inside circles, okay? But from the outside, you can see there's a difference in attitude from the players. You can see there's a difference in the way we're playing, the way we're thinking. So I would say somewhere along the line, Tony gave some fantastic advice to Russie regarding, sometimes let's try this. Let's do it this way. Maybe some selections, he might even play a part there to say, if we want to get the ball outside, we need these kind of players. So I think in a big picture sort of scenario, I think Tony brought quite a bit to the table for Springbok rugby. And as you mentioned, I love that because, if you take big companies, 99% the boss appoints whom? Somebody that thinks like him.
That's right.
I think that's where Russie is actually getting it right, is to get somebody that's thinking totally different. And I think that's quite important, is you don't want only yes guys around you. You don't want to, and I think Russie also grew over the years into accepting other guys can contribute to the better of the team, to the better of the squad, to rugby knowledge, and I think that's why he must have been because he's quite a picky guy, okay, and we all know that. But there must have been something about Tony Brown that impressed him for him to bring him to the table. And let's be fair, if we go and we look at what we've done throughout the season, the quality of tries that we've scored, we were a little bit one-dimensional, but you know that also, and we're not going to hide that. But I put it down to we had to build a foundation to start operating from. And yes, at one stage, we were the best defensive team. We're still fantastic defense, but we were the best of defensive, but we didn't score the best tries. That we left over to New Zealand. But I think after this season, you have to agree, Martin, that we scored fantastic tries, quality tries that we created, not just pass, and then we score. Some of the tries we scored were absolutely
I totally
amazing.
agree with that. Where does this team go now? Keep going.
I think where the team can go is what I've seen against Wales. And a lot of people ask the question, why the game against Wales? Yeah, now we can all say, it's money and it's this and it's that. But what I took out of that game is there is an inherent sort of attitude at the moment with this side. It doesn't matter who's on the other side of the halfway line. We're going to take them on, and we're going to play for 80 minutes. That's what I love about this squad. And I, we've talked about it. France will always be a difficult one. New Zealand, I think, will find, their, let's say, magic again. I'm a little bit surprised that, everybody is going on about Scott and say, the coach. Some mistakes I've seen from you guys. It's got nothing to do with coaching. You can't somebody pass a ball to one of your tight forwards and he knocked the ball on. You can't tell me that's coaching. That's just absolutely straight concentration, lack of concentration. That's it. How many times we've seen you guys a meter from the goal line? Then the wing loses the ball in the tackle. That never happened. I always had this whole thing about New Zealand rugby that really impressed me is that and for many years, I've always sort of talked about it and say, you take a wing of the All Blacks. He's a half a yard from the touchline. He will fight to the end to stay infield. You guys always had an attitude. If we lose the ball, it's like a no-no. Okay? This year, I've seen your tight forwards keep knocking passes from the scrum off. I saw wings losing the ball. I saw centers, just a straightforward pass, knock it on. Things that I've never seen before. And you can't tell me that's coaching. Because no coach will teach you to knock a ball on. Absolutely not. That is coming down to the player. And I think sometimes the player also need to take a little bit of responsibility by making mistakes that they normally don't make. And that's for me the difference with the All Blacks at the moment. There's just too many silly mistakes, giving away penalties that they never done. You know, Martin, you've seen the guys for how many years? They hardly give away penalties. Now suddenly they give away penalties. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they fall over the ball. It's a knock on here. They kick the ball directly into touch. You know, it's like, you get a number 9. He kicks the up and under. He's got like 70 meters to kick the ball, to keep it in field. Then he kicks it directly into touch. And I would like to, I will sit there and I would say, what's going on there? That's things that I've never seen coming out of your team. And I've seen it this year. And if you take the box, cards, yes. Okay, we can talk about that for hours and hours. Okay,
yeah.
There's some rugby incidents, we've all talked about it, and then there's some other outside the law, and that's fine. Okay, but suddenly you guys are getting cards for sticking a hand in between trying to stop a pass. You know when the guy actually tries and intercept the ball, and you know when he try and stop the pass. Okay, and the discipline at this stage wasn't really all that great. Now, that's why I say you can't always just put everything in front of the coach's door and say, hey, it's the coach. And luckily, I've been through it. For years, I've been with the Bulls, then the Northern Transvaal, and being captain for quite a long time. When the team plays well, it's always a great team. When the team plays badly, it's a bad captain and a bad coach. So always. I've been through all that. So, I know all this. And that's why I look at rugby and say, what did I pick out of this game? And overall, I've seen mistakes made by New Zealand players that I've never seen before.
Couple of things, we'll let you go, Nas. It's a bet. How long is he going to get banned for, do you think, after that eye gouge?
It depends on evidence. On his side, it's quite clear what happened there. So I think it can be quite a lengthy, disciplinary. Depends, we know. I've always been one of the guys saying, hey, let's just go back to where it all started. What instigated? Now, I'm not talking about that incident because that's a no-go. Anything for me above the shoulder is a no-go. That's why I'm a guy at the moment saying, you know what? And it's only my opinion. I'm just giving you my opinion. I believe rucking should come back in professional rugby. Anything above the shoulder, 18 months you gone. 18 months you gone. That's it. Okay? And that's it. So players will then realize stay below the shoulder. Okay, why? Because you've seen it week in and week out. And I feel sometimes for the better teams, because you can see the teams that's struggling a little bit, they obstruct, and then what do we hear? Get back. What does that actually mean? You've already obstructed the ball. So if the ref tells you to get back, then rather give me the penalty. Then people say to me, but we don't want to see 100 penalties in the game. I say, but then play according to the law. It's simple. If I can know the laws, you can know the law, the players should know the law. Okay? Just play according to that. What does it mean? Don't fall over. Don't lie on the wrong side. You've seen them all. You've seen sometimes, and I'm going to use my hands, sometimes you can see some players start going like that. Doing what? You want to obstruct the opposition to play. So that should be an immediate penalty. But if he falls and you rack him like we found out in 81 in New Zealand, when the guys really racked each other, only once. After that, you stay on your feet.
You stay on your feet.
That's why I say
on your side.
I think that should be, they might revisit that. I think they will never revisit it, but I think they should, because it is going to clear the ball very quickly and keep the guys on their feet on the right side of the ruck instead of on the wrong side of the ruck.
Well, as I said right at the start, it's been an astonishing year, and we've got one team right at the top of World Rugby, and we're coming to visit your place next year. We've got 3 tests and then one in the UK, or maybe at Ireland it might be, and what an amazing tour that's going to be. But who would have thought at the start of this year, after what we saw at Ellis Park and so forth, that we would end the year right now talking about a team that has just elevated itself way above the rest. It's been an incredible year for the Springbok Rugby, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And I think the tour comes at a fantastic time frame because I love tours, if you can put it that way. Why? Because you give some other guys an opportunity to play against international sides that they might never had an opportunity to play against. That's the one thing I like about it. And then secondly, and don't make a mistake, you guys know you've got to do a little bit of homework. You want to come and when was it? Is it 96?
96.
You guys beat us. Yeah, 96. So that will also play a part because that was the first team, and I think the only team so far beating South Africa. We would love to keep it that way. I think you guys would love to change that and make it the second team. So it's a nice series to really look forward to, because we know if you underestimate any New Zealand side, you're in trouble. And I think we're getting to it now, where if you look at any South African side at the moment and you think it's going to be a walk in the park, you're in the wrong park.
Huge thank you to Novus Glass for sponsoring this episode of the DSPN and for being a proud partner of the Special Olympics New Zealand. This December, over 1,200 incredible athletes, along with hundreds of volunteers, coaches and other support staff, will be making their way to Christchurch or Tautahi for the Special Olympics New Zealand 2025 National Summer Games. Novus Glass is proud to be supporting something special, and you can help support the athletes too by texting Novus to 3598. That's Novus, Novus 3598. Thanks again, Novus Glass, for supporting us here on the DSPN. Windscreen, crack or chip, notice it, Novus it.
DSPN.